Emily Bennett had always been the kind of woman who helped everyone else. As a nurse in a busy city hospital, she spent years comforting sick patients, talking with lonely elderly people, and calming frightened children. She gave smiles even when she was tired. She stayed late even when she wanted to go home. She listened, she supported, she cared. But somewhere along the way, she forgot how to care for herself. She kept pouring from a cup that had been empty for a long time. Her last relationship had only made things worse. She had tried hard to be enough for a man who rarely listened, rarely appreciated her, and rarely noticed her tears. She had stayed long after her heart felt exhausted, thinking that if she worked harder, maybe she would finally be treated with kindness. But the day she realized she felt more alone with him than she did by herself, something inside her quietly broke. She ended things, packed her belongings, and took a leave from work. She knew she needed time away from noise, from expectations, from the feeling that she was never truly seen. So she rented a small cabin deep in the Appalachian Mountains, a place full of tall trees, cool winds, and quiet nights. She told herself it would only be for a few weeks, just enough time to breathe again. When she arrived, she felt both scared and hopeful. The cabin was simple but charming, with a wooden porch that faced a line of mountains that looked almost painted. The air smelled like pine and fresh earth. For the first time in a long time, she felt like she could hear her own heartbeat. But on her first night there, a heavy storm rolled through the mountains. Rain hit the roof like pebbles, and wind rustled the trees outside. She tried to read. But then suddenly, every light went out. The cabin fell into complete darkness. Emily's breath caught in her chest. She wasn't afraid of storms, but she didn't know how to handle a power outage in a place like this. She grabbed her coat, stepped outside carefully, and held her phone flashlight in front of her. She walked toward the small building behind the cabin where the generator was kept. She had barely reached the wooden steps when she heard footsteps approaching through the rain. She froze, unable to see clearly. Then a calm, gentle voice broke the silence. "Evening. You must be the new renter." Emily turned her light and saw a tall man with a hooded jacket, a lantern in one hand. His face was partly hidden in the shadows, but she could see kind eyes and a quiet expression. "I'm sorry," she stuttered. "The power went out and I wasn't sure what to do." "No need to be sorry," the man said softly. "I'm Caleb. I live up the hill. The storm probably knocked something loose. Let me check it." He moved with an easy confidence, as if he knew the land by heart. Emily stepped aside and watched him open the generator panel. He worked quietly, his hands steady, as if he had done this 100 times. "You don't have to help," she said nervously. "It's late." He glanced at her with a small smile. "I don't mind. Mountains look big and scary in the dark. No one should feel alone on their first night." Something about the way he said it made Emily's chest tighten, not in fear, but in a feeling she couldn't name. Within a few minutes, the lights inside the cabin flickered back on. Emily let out a relieved breath. "There you go," he said. "Nothing serious. Just the wind shaking things up." "Thank you," she whispered. "Really? I appreciate it." He nodded once, gentle and modest. "If you need anything, my place is just through those trees. You'll see the warm porch light." Emily watched him leave, wondering how someone could feel both strong and calm at the same time. The next morning, she found firewood stacked neatly by her porch with a small note. "For the cold evenings, Caleb." She held the note for a moment, unsure why such a small act made her eyes sting. Over the next week, Caleb showed up in quiet, thoughtful ways. He helped her fix a loose door hinge, taught her which trails were safe to walk, and pointed out places where she could watch the sunrise. He never talked too much. He never pushed himself into her day. He simply appeared with steady kindness, as if helping came naturally to him. Emily found herself looking forward to hearing his slow footsteps on the porch or seeing him wave from the trail. She liked his peaceful silence. She liked how he listened without interrupting. She liked that he never made her feel like she needed to be perfect. But kindness was strange to her. She wasn't used to someone noticing her without expecting anything in return. She wasn't used to someone showing up without confusing her with mixed signals. And she definitely wasn't used to gentle patience. One evening, after a long walk, she sat on the porch with Caleb. The sky was turning orange and pink, and the air was cool enough for warm sweaters. They talked about simple things: wildflowers, weather patterns, the sound of birds in the morning. But inside, Emily felt a heavy knot of emotion she couldn't hide anymore. There was a long pause. Caleb was looking at the mountains. Emily looked at her hands, twisting them nervously. "Caleb," she began softly. The words felt heavy, fragile. "Can I tell you something personal?" He turned slightly toward her, his eyes calm. "Of course, you can say anything." She swallowed hard. "I don't really know how to explain it. I've had people in my life who said they cared, but never treated me like I mattered. I think somewhere along the way, I forgot how to feel loved. I don't know what love is supposed to look like, not the real kind." Her voice trembled at the end. She didn't cry, but her eyes shone with unshed tears. She had never shared this truth with anyone, not even her closest friends. She expected Caleb to look away or act unsure. But he didn't. He didn't tease her, and he didn't fill the silence with rushed words. He simply looked at her with an expression so gentle it made her heart ache. Emily lowered her voice to almost a whisper. "I don't know how to be loved." For a moment, the only sound was the wind, moving through the trees. Then Caleb spoke, his voice warm, steady, and full of quiet certainty. "Then let me show you how." The words were simple, but they reached into her chest like sunlight warming cold ground. She looked at him in surprise, not because he said something romantic, but because he said it with sincerity, with presence, with a kind of honesty she wasn't used to. But she didn't know how to respond. She didn't know if she should trust him, or if she should run from the possibility of being hurt again. Her heart beat quickly. Her breath came softly. She didn't speak. Caleb didn't move closer. He didn't pressure her. He simply added, "Only if you want to learn. Only if you're ready." His voice stayed calm, like someone offering a hand without pulling. That night, long after he left, Emily lay in bed thinking about his words. She wondered if someone like him, steady, kind, grounded, really meant what he said. She wondered if she deserved the gentle things he seemed to offer. She wondered if she could open her heart again. As she watched the shadows of the trees move across her ceiling, she whispered to herself, maybe I can learn." She didn't know if love was waiting for her in the mountains, but she knew one thing for sure. Caleb's words had touched something inside her that had been silent for years, and that was where her story truly began. The morning after Caleb told Emily, "Then let me show you how," she woke with a strange mix of fear and hope. Those words had stayed with her all night, echoing softly in her mind. She was not used to someone speaking to her with that much sincerity. She wasn't used to kindness that didn't hide anything behind it. As she made her tea and sat on the porch, she found herself looking down the path that led to Caleb's home, wondering if he would appear like he usually did, or if things would feel different now. But when he finally walked toward her, his steps slow and easy, he didn't act differently. He didn't bring up what she said last night. He didn't ask her to talk about her feelings. He simply gave her a small smile and asked, "How was your morning?" As if they were to old friends who shared peaceful routines. And somehow, that made her feel safe. Over the next days, Caleb didn't try to teach love with big gestures or dramatic moments. Instead, he showed her through little things. He showed her by being there, not in a loud way, but in a gentle, steady way she wasn't used to. He showed her by treating her with respect, by listening, by noticing when she was tired, by making her laugh without trying too hard. One afternoon, Emily struggled to start a small fire in the fireplace. She frowned at the logs, feeling silly. Caleb happened to stop by, holding a small basket of apples from his garden. "You look like you're fighting with that wood," he teased playfully. Emily sighed. "I am losing." "Here," he said kindly. "Let me show you." He knelt beside the fireplace, arranging the pieces of wood carefully. Emily watched his hands, gentle but sure. He struck a match and lit the small kindling. Flames caught slowly, growing warm and bright. "It takes patience," he said softly. watching the fire build. Just like most good things, Emily felt those words settle inside her. Patience. She had never been given patience before. She had been rushed, judged, or ignored, but never patiently understood. And now, here was someone showing her that kindness could be slow and steady. Like a fire built with care. Another day, Caleb invited her on a hike to a hill he said had the best view of the valley. Emily agreed, though she wasn't sure she could keep up. But he walked at her pace, stopping whenever she needed a break, never making her feel embarrassed. When she apologized for slowing him down, he simply smiled. Why apologize? We're not racing anywhere. Emily didn't know how to respond. She had always felt like life was a race, like she had to keep up or she would fall behind. But walking beside Caleb, with birds singing overhead and leaves crunching under their feet, she felt something she hadn't felt in years. Peace. When they reached the top, the view was breathtaking. Mountains stretched far into the distance, covered in shades of green and gold. Emily stood quietly, letting the breeze touch her face. It's beautiful, she whispered. Yeah, Caleb said softly. And you look lighter here. She turned to him, a little surprised. Lighter, he nodded. Like the mountains helped you put some of the weight down. Emily looked at the sky, blinking back sudden emotion. She didn't know how he saw her so clearly, but it didn't scare her. It comforted her. As the days passed, Emily began to open up more. She told Caleb stories from her childhood, from her work, from her past relationships without going into painful details, just enough to let him understand her more. And Caleb listened with genuine attention. He didn't interrupt. He didn't judge. He didn't try to fix everything. He just made space for her words. One evening, while they were sitting by the fire, Emily felt overwhelmed by old memories. She didn't cry, but she fell silent, staring into the flames, her hands trembling slightly. Caleb noticed immediately. You okay? He asked gently. She nodded, though her voice was soft. Sometimes old thoughts come back and make me feel small. I wish I knew how to stop them. Caleb didn't tell her to forget it. He didn't tell her to be strong. He simply stood up, grabbed a warm blanket, and placed it around her shoulders with quiet care. Then he sat beside her, close enough to offer comfort, but far enough to respect her space. Love isn't supposed to make you feel small, he said softly. The real kind lets you breathe. Emily felt her chest loosen a little. His words were simple, but they felt like healing. Some days, Emily still struggled. Some days she doubted herself. Some days she wondered if she was too broken to learn anything new about love. But Caleb never made her feel like a problem. When she doubted herself, he encouraged her gently. When she questioned her worth, he reminded her of her strength. When she grew quiet, he let silence sit comfortably between them. One afternoon, while they were picking apples together, Emily asked a question she had been holding inside. Why are you being so kind to me? Caleb paused, looking at her with calm eyes. Because kindness is not something you earn. It's something you deserve. Her throat tightened. She had never heard it said like that before. And he added, because I want to be here. Not to change you, just to be here. Emily looked away, but she couldn't hide the small smile forming on her lips. For the first time in many years, she felt seen in a gentle way. When her leave of absence from work began to reach its end, Emily found herself torn between two lives. The city was familiar, busy, loud, full of responsibilities. The mountains were peaceful, slow, steady, full of healing. And somewhere between the trees and the quiet mornings, she had found something she never expected, the possibility of being loved in a healthy, gentle way. One evening, she sat with Caleb on the porch. The sun was setting, painting the sky with soft colors. She took a deep breath, her hands folded on her lap. My leave ends soon, she said quietly. Caleb didn't react with disappointment or fear. Instead, he nodded thoughtfully. How do you feel about going back? Emily shook her head softly. I don't know. Part of me feels like I'm finally starting to breathe here. And another part of me is scared of losing this peace. Caleb looked at her, his expression warm and steady. Peace doesn't belong to a place. It belongs to you. But sometimes we need the right place to find it. She felt her eyes grow warm. What if What if I lose myself again when I go back? He paused, then spoke gently. Then you start again. And you don't have to start alone. Emily felt her heart beat harder. It wasn't a grand declaration, it was real, simple, honest. It was exactly what she needed. That night, she thought long and hard about what she wanted her life to look like. She didn't want to run away from responsibilities, but she also didn't want to return to a life that made her feel invisible. The mountains had given her space to heal, and Caleb had shown her a version of love that was calm, steady, and safe. By morning, she made her choice. She found Caleb chopping wood outside his cabin. When he saw her walking toward him, he put the axe down and wiped his hands. "You okay?" he asked, reading her face with concern. Emily nodded, her heart steady. "I think I want to stay here, not because I need escape, but because I like who I'm becoming here. And I like being around you." Caleb's eyes softened, warm like sunrise. "You're welcome here, for as long as you want." Emily stepped closer, not afraid this time. "Thank you," she whispered, "for showing me what gentle love looks like." Caleb reached out, wrapping her in a soft, warm embrace, not too tight, not overwhelming, just steady and reassuring. As she rested her head lightly against his chest, he whispered with quiet affection, "You're loved now, and you know how." Emily closed her eyes, letting those words settle deep inside her. She felt whole. She felt calm. She felt ready for a new chapter, one she hadn't expected, but was grateful to receive. And with the mountains standing tall around them and the soft breeze carrying the scent of pine, Emily knew she had finally found a place where her heart could rest.